part of me. Yes, I've got you under my skin. I've tried so not to give in. I said to myself, this affair ain't never gonna go too well. But why should I try to resist?
Hey, welcome back. Thanks for listening to the podcast. My guest this week is my good friend Paul Slater. I met Paul when I was working at Microsoft, with Microsoft, on a project. And he was the CTO there, and we got along really well, and we still collaborate on stuff to this day. He's a really super sharp guy, very British, which is super fun. And we talk about sports a lot and stuff, and he promised to explain cricket to me, and I think this is a pretty fun one. If you're not familiar with cricket, the sport of cricket, the way he talks about it and the passion he brings to it and the care he uses to explain it to me, I think was awesome and really cool. And as you'll hear at the end, we kind of figured out a plan to actually catch a game. I'm interested. I'm interested now in cricket. It looks cool. And I get it. I get it now. It makes sense. And that's a big deal. So here's your condensed Paul Slater version of cricket. And enjoy my conversation and the rest of the episode with Paul. And thanks again for listening, and like and subscribe and review and all that crap. Whatever. I'm just glad you're here. Have fun and enjoy. Maybe you'll like cricket now after listening to this.
It'll create the illusion that I'm here on a late night radio station drinking a beer with a buddy apparently talking about cricket.
Yeah, I thought it'd be interesting to, you threatened to explain to me once cricket in a way that I would love it after you explained it.
I love the way you say threatened.
So I figured, what a neat idea.
At gunpoint, I threatened to tell you about cricket.
Yeah, so, because I mean, my format's all over the place. I just kind of let it ride, and through the pandemic really started doing this. The idea that the piece of chaos means like gotta find some kind of piece of this, right? And it's only coming into realizing how important the conversations. I mean, it started out just talking to comics and stuff like that, but now it's anybody. But it's just really like thinking about the importance of these conversations that we took for granted. I mean, every 2 weeks I was having shows where I hung out with a bunch of comics and people that came to the shows and had this social thing plus work. I didn't even think about how much interaction was going on. So, but I always like depth too. So like, I'm the kind of person that will go to a party and I'll find one or two people to talk to in depth rather than kind of bounce around. It's not ideal in like business settings to have that desire, right? But that's if I had to choose, that's how I would be. So the podcast really opened up a lane to just kind of like have more in-depth conversations, and as the world comes back, it's opening up to be a way to have conversations with people you aren't bumping into, can't bump into readily, and almost make sure they happen.
I like that. I think it's a really neat idea.
We have this new connection we can all get behind. Nobody's going to be like, I don't know how to use Zoom anymore. Like that, you can't get away with that anymore. Like, so it's like, oh, there's no excuses. I mean, like, I know a lot of people connected with family and distant family and would have like family Zooms and stuff. And we did it too. Like I'll have bingo with my whole family. We'll all get on and do like just bingo and be silly. And
I thought for a second bingo was an app that you were using.
I bought a wheel with the balls and everything. Like we call out the numbers. It's
cool.
Like it's fun. But so yeah, why not have a true fan who still watches and BBC? It's so funny how many times you bring up things that you do that are so English, so deeply ingrained. It's awesome. It's so neat.
Well, that's how I suppose. Who better to explain? It's how you stay connected. I mean, it's a very strange thing being an expat. Being an expat, I suppose, means that you're never really truly at home anywhere, but you're sort of at home in multiple places. And so I spent the first 30 years or so of my life in the UK, flitting around the UK. So London, Reading, Oxford. Was born in Oxford and then lived in London and then lived in Reading. And, spent a bunch of time in other cities, up in Manchester for a while, became a Manchester United fan. And so I have all that, but then I move to the US, and I moved to the US because I love the US and very, happy to be here. But that means that when I go home, they ask me what part of the States I'm from, because to them, my accent sounds American. And when I'm here, I'm a stranger here as well. So it's sort of odd, right? You don't have that full sense of connection to either place, but you get the benefit of having a sense of connection to both places. Yeah. And so I think, and a lot of expats do this, I think that you tag on to very specific things that remind you of home. Yeah. And that gives you sort of the grounding and the comfort and things like that.
Yeah, that's me in Philly. Like I haven't lived there for a long time, but I spent my first 30-some years there. So it's home, and there's these little idiosyncrasies of that place, and, loving the Eagles still and the Phillies and that kind of thing. But it is weird. It is weird.
And it almost strengthens it's strange, isn't it? It almost strengthens it. I think I think I like cricket more now, strangely, than I did when I lived there, at least the last 10 years or so, right? The last 10 years that I was living in the UK, I was obsessed with it as a kid, played quite a bit and stuff. But and the last 10 years or so that I was in the UK, it faded. And then it's really come kind of raging back in the last, I would say 5 or 6 years. So that's odd too, but it's almost like, I don't know if you felt that with Philly, but it's almost like like that thing that grounds you becomes even a stronger thing when you're away from it.
Yeah, there's parts of it. I mean, for most of the early years that we lived here, at least once a year, you entertain the idea of going back. There's this pull, to it. It's really interesting. I think what's changed for me is the time I have to take in pro sports is diminished, aggressively diminished. So I've morphed into this like playoffs kind of watcher, you know what I mean? Rather than
I'm the same actually. Yeah.
Watching the whole thing. But I'll tell you, I just went to, for the first time, oddly, like I'm within throwing distance of a baseball field that has kids playing all year. But I just don't go because they're not my kids. It's not, I'm just not going to go watch kids play. But a friend of mine, her son is playing now, and she was like, do you guys want to come to the game? It's right near the house. So I went. It was the first baseball game I'd been to, kid baseball game I'd been to probably since I played, really. Wow. It was so cool. And my hypervigilance of the game came like right back, like what was going on in the game. And it was so funny because the kid, he popped up on a 3-1 count, which if you know baseball.
No, I don't. I know baseball quite well.
I was just like, after the game, I was just like, do you have a green light on that? Cause that kid couldn't throw a strike. And he was just like he knew he screwed it up, It was so funny. Cause I was like, that would have been ball 4, buddy. That was tempting but high, you know. It's just so funny how it just, like you said, just comes roaring back. And now I'm like, when can I go watch another game? And like, maybe I'll put on a game on TV, you know. The Dodgers are playing all the time. Like that's the, you know, out here it's the Dodgers. So I had the ticket for a while, like that baseball season ticket.
Oh yeah, the MLB
which is really cool. It's really cool for a local person who's moved to just watch your team. So I really dig that. So I assume they have the same thing with cricket, but like I've literally never watched a cricket game. I know zero, except it kind of compares to baseball.
Well, we're going to fix that.
I looked it up on Wikipedia. I didn't even know it was like in a circle, like the stadium. I don't think I've ever even seen a place you play cricket. It's just, it's like this mystery. And, you know, we have whole sports channels. They don't even mention it.
Yeah.
You know, like
I mean, that is odd.
It never comes up on ESPN.
Very, very, very occasionally, you know, when on ESPN, when they do the, I forget what they call that, but, you know, like the 10 top plays that they do each day, very, very occasionally. I've seen cricket in that, you know, for some like amazing piece of fielding or something along those lines.
But is it just not like, doesn't always, I don't know. There must be just as much amazingness. I guess it just doesn't get the ratings here because nobody knows, but.
Yeah. And very particularly, I think, because there are different parts of the world that are very, very, very into it.
Yeah.
And specifically, I mean, India is utterly, utterly obsessed by it. I mean, officially, I don't know if you knew this, but officially, apparently, although there's some controversy about this, officially their national sport is hockey. But in reality, if that's their national sport, then their religion is cricket.
Hockey, and like field hockey? Hockey?
Sorry, go ahead.
Hockey, like field hockey? Oh.
Yeah.
Boy. That's a tough game to watch.
So anyway, that's supposedly their official sport, because I think they were really good at it at the Olympics for a long time. But anyway, like I say, cricket is basically the religion in India, and to the point where Sachin Tendulkar, Virat Kohli, you know, top Indian players are considered to be practically gods. Sachin Tendulkar recently got COVID, so he's a retired player, and he recently got COVID, and the entire country, which of course itself was going through and still is going through this massive COVID crisis, but the entire country was you know, holding its breath as Sachin went to hospital, and was he going to be okay? And you know, and statues of him, people were, you know, sort of you know, bringing flowers to the statues and all that kind of stuff, as I understand it. So yeah, there's a level of interest in it in India that surpasses, I think, the obsession with, let's say, soccer in much of the world.
Really? Just in India, though, at this point?
Some of the other subcontinent countries almost as much, but certainly India, it is, it's the sport that transcends all sports, no doubt about it.
Wow. That's so interesting. That's so interesting. Yeah, I was wondering, like, who's the Babe Ruth of cricket, you know, or, you know, and
well, that's an interesting topic in its own right. Actually, a very interesting topic in its own right. Because statistically, there is a player for whom, just purely when you think of it from statistics, there is a player that can easily be argued to be the greatest sports person of all time, because there is no equivalent to his statistical feats really in any other sport. So that guy's name is Don Bradman.
Don.
And he was, so Donald, you know. So Don Bradman, and he was around in the 1930s. His career started in about 1932, I think. Test career. We'll get into the types of cricket that there are, but they're like at the highest level of the game. His career started maybe a little bit earlier than that, maybe late 20s, early 30s, something like that. And it went through to 1948. You don't really have to know anything about cricket to be, I think, probably amazed by this statistic. So just like in baseball, they have a batting average in cricket. Mm-hmm. And the difference, I suppose, is there's no such thing as a perfect batting average, because what you do in cricket is you basically take the number of runs that somebody scores and you divide it by the number of times they got out, right? And there's no limit in a game to the number of runs you can score. So you could score, theoretically, you could score 100 runs, 200 runs, 300 runs, 400 runs, 1,000 runs in an individual game. So they take the entire number of runs that you've scored and they divide it, as I say, by the number of times you got out. And you don't always get out in cricket either. So you might be, if you're in, like, say, 20 times, you might get out 15 times or something like that. And we'll get into why that is in a minute as well. But simple metric, number of runs you get divided by the number of times you get out. And there's another thing they do in cricket, which is rather interesting, that they don't do in baseball, is they care about career averages much more than like single season averages. So, in baseball, typically people are known for their single season average. And, unless it's very, very, unusual, like Ted Williams' batting average, they don't, they don't talk about career batting averages. But in cricket, they do. They focus quite a lot on career batting average. Now, of cricket they started keeping records in cricket on this in around about I think the late 1800s, early 1900s. And the second best batsman of all time, of all the thousands and thousands and thousands of people that have ever played the game, has a batting average. Funny enough, I've got a book that will tell me the exact number here so I don't get it wrong. But the person who has the second highest batting average of all time career has a batting average of 61.87. That is, extraordinarily high. So the best current player, who is, considered to be an all-time great, his batting average is slightly below that, 61.8. But then you very rapidly tail off from that. So we've got some that are 60.97, 60.83, et cetera, et cetera. And there's only, of all the thousands of players that have ever played the game, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with an average over 60. So, and then it tails off from there to 59, et cetera. And world class, like absolutely world class, is considered to be above 50. Like if you have a batting average above 50, you're one of the greatest players ever to play the game. Yeah. And there's maybe 100 of those that have ever played the game out of the thousands.
Is it all individual stats?
Yeah, so these are all individuals and their scores. Bradman's average is 99.94.
What?
So, and this is not like a single season fluke. This is over a career that lasted like 18 years.
Wow.
So his average, if you think about it, is over 50% better than the next player ever to play the game. Of all the thousands and thousands of people that have played the game, his average is over 50% better. So that's imagining the equivalent of that is you take a 400 batting average in baseball, and like everybody in baseball ever to play it has had a 400 batting average or below. And there's one guy who's got a batting average of over 600. That's the equivalent of what Bradman was to everybody else that has ever played the game. So it's kind of a weird statistical anomaly where there's this like one guy who was kind of superhuman at it.
Wow.
And then there's everybody else.
That is interesting. And to have never heard of him either. Mm-hmm. Where, like, is he from where? Where did he play? Australia.
So New South Wales he was born. But in cricket, you always get they're the new Bradman, right? It's kind of like people, it's the new Jordan or or the new Nicholas or the new Tiger or whatever. But in this case, there's never ever that, was Tiger better or was Jack better, right?
No question.
Is LeBron as good as Jordan or any of that kind of stuff, right? There's never really any question of that in cricket, right? They'll call people the new Bradman, but they're like, yeah, you're the new Bradman, but your average is still 50% worse than Bradman's was. So
that's crazy.
And people say, well, he played in a different era. Yeah, he played in a different era, but he played alongside hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of great players that also played at that time, and he was at least 50% better than them too. Even that doesn't work.
Would he? So you said it was in the 30s and 40s, so I assume there's footage of this. So people have seen him play. So would it compare to that same kind of thing around, well, put him in the game now and he'd get destroyed kind of thing? It's like, well, they're still averaging,
I'll tell you what, cricket makes this very difficult. I presume we're recording, right? Yeah. So the other thing about Bradman that might put that into perspective is that back in the days when Bradman played, you would basically the bowlers were about the same speed. Maybe they were a little bit slower. They generally were a little bit less accurate than they are today. But there were exceptions to that. There was one famous exception called Harold Larwood, who was extraordinarily accurate. But the key difference was that they didn't have any of the padding. So the ball was the same. The ball is actually slightly harder than a baseball, and it has kind of a raised seam as well, which can make it really kind of nasty if it hits you.
Yeah.
But today, the players wear pads on their legs, which they always did. Right? You always wore pads on your legs. But now they wear thigh pads, they wear chest pads, and they wear a helmet. Now, it's not as built up as American football or anything like that, but it is, still good protection. They have an arm guard that protects them as well.
Yeah.
They didn't have any of that in those days. You just wore a floppy cap was all you wore in those days. And you might think, well, okay, because they didn't have all of that, then maybe the bowlers weren't as aggressive or anything like that. But no, not true at all. So in 1929 and the early 1930s, Bradman came to England as part of the Australian side that came to England, and absolutely demolished England. So until that point, he was known, his nickname was the Boy Wonder. And then at that point, they changed it, and his nickname became the Run Machine because he just continued to score runs, almost never got out. And so the English team had been highly dominant, and suddenly the Australians are just wiping the floor with them, and they're doing it based on this one guy. And in cricket, that almost never happens. It's a sport of 11 people, and there's not the consistency that one guy can just make this massive difference, but they did. And so Australia dominated England, or more accurately, Bradman dominated England.
Yeah.
And in those days, in sort of colonial times and things like that, being dominated by Australia was not something that sat well with the English.
Yeah.
So the next tour, which the game between England and Australia is called the Ashes. So they go, that's a really cool story as to why it's called the Ashes, by the way, as well. But anyway, the next tour, they go over to Australia. And when they go to Australia, they are absolutely determined that they're not going to lose. They're not going to let Bradman beat them or indeed anybody else beat them. So they put this public, what you call private school, we call public school. So what they put this public school guy in charge who went to Eton and Oxford and all these, fancy places and stuff, and says, okay, you go, you do whatever you need to do to beat this chap, this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So Douglas Jardine's the guy's name. He hatches this plot, basically. And he says that he's seen old film footage, like literal film footage of Bradman that suggested that he really didn't like what they call the short ball. So the short ball is really simple. The ball bounces in cricket.
Yeah.
So it bounces off the ground, and because it's got a raised seam, it can behave unpredictably when it bounces off the ground. So if you throw it in short, it can bounce up and then like come at your throat or come at your head or something along those lines. So Jardine hatches this idea based on some old footage that he's seen of slow bowlers bowling at players to something that they call leg theory, which basically just means they're going to bowl at your body, like bowl towards your body.
Because they couldn't watch film. They couldn't watch the tapes. Really?
No, it wasn't,
like they do now.
It was actual film that they had seen, right? So it was like literal film that they would like play back, but they'd seen these little clips and so on.
Yeah.
Of actual film that was shot at previous test matches. And so that's what they used to try to figure it out. Anyway, so this is the theory now that what they're going to do is, because you can put the fielders wherever you want, you can put the fielders right in close to the body. So Jardine's idea is we're going to get the fastest, most dangerous, but most accurate bowlers in the country. And we're going to give them basically one task, which is that they're going to bowl super short. That's going to come in at Bradman's chest or throat or head, all of which is uncovered and unprotected. And then one of two things will happen. So he'll either try to fend it off and they'll catch it with some of these like close fielders that they have close by, or they'll hit him in the head or the chest and incapacitate him or maybe kill him. And then at that point, the problem of Bradman has gone away.
Yeah.
So that was the plan. It was called the Bodyline series, and it was all hatched out on the way over there to Australia. Got the great fast bowlers to allow them to do it. And then they would change the field, like when they wanted to practice. Sometimes they even did it against other players so they could like practice it or just intimidate the other side. But then, particularly when Bradman came in, they would then like dot all the fielders around, and then they would basically do this thing, which is like not theoretically illegal, although they changed the laws afterwards to make it illegal. But it was still absolute. I mean, like the most unsportsmanlike thing you could possibly do.
What was it
you
called
can imagine
again?
The Aussies didn't take well to this. They actually threatened. There was a diplomatic breakdown between the two countries. Australia talked about potentially leaving the Commonwealth, which is sort of the collection of nations headed by the Queen. There was even talk of war at some point between the two countries based on this thing. So like super like incredibly tense moments. But you remember me telling you at the start that like what's considered to be a world-class average is over 50. Bradman still averaged over 50 in that series.
Oh my God. What was it called? What was that move called?
Bodyline.
Bodyline series?
The technique was called Bodyline. You should look it up. It's really cool. There's been tons of books written about it. There's been like a mini series on TV and stuff. It's super cool.
Had people been killed with a cricket ball in the head? Like, is that pretty common?
Yeah. I wouldn't say common, but I mean, it certainly has happened. There was one 3 or 4 years ago where an Australian was killed by a cricket ball. So it certainly can happen. These days they try to like the helmets, for example. Now they have different things at the back of the helmets because, of course, that part of the back of your head that's most vulnerable, that's now better protected than it used to be. But certainly, it absolutely is possible. It happens rarely. The good news is that the faster, like really, really, really fast bowling is incredibly skilled. So you don't tend to encounter super fast bowling when you're younger because the players haven't built up the skills to do it yet. It's a little bit different to baseball in the sense that, raw speed can be developed before the control. Right. Really fast bowling in cricket is very much based on rhythm, so you have to build that up, and that's a technique you have to build. So you can certainly encounter fast bowlers as you're kind of coming up through your career, but fast, accurate bowling, which is what's really dangerous, it takes them a long time to build up those skills. And so as they're building up those skills, the batsmen are also building up their skills. So you tend not to face it before you have the ability to kind of get out of the way of it. But it can still happen. I mean, it does still occasionally happen. Obviously, it's terrible when it does.
It reminds me of, if I'm thinking of the right thing, it kind of reminds me of the pitcher in women's softball, like with the wind up and the underhanded.
Yeah,
actually, just fast pitch softball, not women's softball, but fast pitch softball with the crazy windmill motion and stuff like that. It's a whole thing. It's incredible.
Cricket it's sort of a little bit like that, although the bowlers run in as well, so that's different.
Yeah.
So I threatened to explain how it works. Do you want me to give it a go?
Yeah, give it a go. Let's see.
So there's a couple of things I think that you need to know kind of ahead of time in order to be able to sort of understand it at all. So one is that there are actually multiple forms of the game. But the basis of the game is actually fairly simple, which is you've got a batting side and a bowling side. And typically, and I'll explain the nuances of this in a little bit, but typically it's as simple as the bowling side bowls, the batting side bats, the batting side bats an innings, which is basically all of them, or almost all of them. There's 11 players in a side. Once 10 are out, the innings is over. And the reason for that is you always have two batsmen in at the same time. So once 10 are out, the innings is over, and then you flip, and then the other side bats. So sort of, at its very simplest, imagine that a game of baseball, instead of 9 innings where they're kind of like effectively stopping and restarting every 3 outs, instead of doing that, you would like imagine having a baseball game where you would have one team and they have all of their outs. So I guess,
27,
9 outs,
right?
as it were, and then you would have the next team come in and they would have their 9 outs, and then whoever scored the most won the game. So it's sort of a little bit like that, where on the surface, very, very, very simple. But then there are different forms of the game that complicate that.
Is there an advantage? Is there an advantage to going first or second, given that you're just going to take all your outs?
Yes, but the nature of the advantage is definitely one of the nuances and one of the complexities of the game, because you can't say there is definitely an advantage to going first or definitely an advantage to going second. It is situational as to whether there's an advantage to going first and going second.
Okay.
Which leads me to the second sort of like fundamental point about it, which is that the game, I would say, at its heart, is a game of weather, pitch conditions, and then in the best version of the game, time. So what do I mean by that? Well, with the weather, that affects how the ball moves, right? So there are multiple different kinds of bowlers. There are bowlers that are slow. They may bowl as slow as, 40 miles an hour or something like that. There are bowlers that are very fast, and they may bowl up to 100 miles an hour. It's the fastest that's ever been recorded is exactly 100 miles an hour, by the way. Not even 100.1 or something like that, 100.0. And so there's a range, a very, very big range. And there are bowlers that spin the ball, so it spins very, very, very fast. And they can spin it in one direction or another direction, depending on who they are. There are bowlers that are called seam bowlers, where effectively, and these are a type of fast bowler, where they bowl it and they try to get that raised seam to hit the ground. And then depending on how it hits the ground, it might go left, it might go right, whatever. And then there are swing bowlers, and those bowlers are very accomplished at moving the ball laterally in the air, right? And it's the same ball as you go. This is why it's also a game of time and weather, because as you go through an innings, for most of the innings, you're basically using the same ball the whole time.
Okay.
And so what you do as a bowler is you'll polish one side of the ball and you'll leave the other side of the ball unpolished. And so that starts to cause the thing to move in the air. And so now you've got all these incredible nuances in the game in the sense that you can put the fielders wherever you want. The ball will behave differently at the start than it will in the middle, than it will in the end of the day, for example. And it will behave differently depending on, they call it what the pitch is doing. So in other words, whether, has there been rain, and has that landed on the pitch in a certain way? Is it moist, et cetera, et cetera. The swing bowlers that I was talking about, they love humidity. They love cloud cover. And so let's say, for example, you were starting at the start of the day and you looked up in the sky and you saw there was a bunch of cloud cover, you're bowling first, right? Because you want that advantage. You want your swing bowlers to be able to take advantage of those cloudy, potentially humid conditions, and then they'll move the ball around a lot more because the conditions are like that. Whereas if it's a beautiful sunny day, then you probably want to bat first. So those are the sorts of things that kind of like contribute as to whether there's one advantage to one side or one advantage to another side. And I also mentioned it's a function of time as well.
Right.
So in the very best, what I would consider to be the very best form of the game is the one that everybody talks about, the one that lasts 5 days. And so there's the versions that are, there's versions of this game that last 3 hours or less. But then the game that is considered to be the pinnacle, the one that I was talking about with Bradman, et cetera, that game can last up to 5 days. And so in that case, each team bats twice versus once. So you have the first team goes in and then the second team comes in, tries to match them or pass them. And then the first team comes in again and the second team comes in. And there's even weird, quirky things. Like if you were ahead by a certain number of runs, you can actually flip the order of the second innings and things like, really quirky things like that you can effectively do. But during the course of those 4 or 5 days, the nature of the game is going through all kinds of different twists and turns. And you're taking advantage in some cases of how long the other side has been in terms of how you will play tactically against them. As I mentioned, you keep the ball for a long time. You do, but it's not the whole time. You get effectively 90 overs in order to be able to bowl at the other side, and then you get a new ball, and then when you get a new ball, it behaves differently again. So there's all these things that you're kind of playing with. That you're playing with time, as it were, as you're tactically trying to do it. And the most interesting thing about it, one of the most interesting things about it for me, is that the captain is the coach effectively. Right? They have coaches like off field, but all of the strategic decisions that are made on the field are made by the captain. So where to put the fielders, who to bowl, when to bowl them, who to take on, who to take off, how to position your field, strategy against particular batsmen. All of that stuff is done by the captain, who is a player.
And so I have so many questions. So are they running to somewhere like in baseball, or is it like home run derby that they are running to somewhere?
Yeah. So, I mentioned that there were you've got 2 batsmen in at any one time.
Yeah.
And so what you effectively have is 2, they're called wickets. The term wicket is actually used in different contexts, the same word to mean multiple things in cricket. So that's quite difficult. But you've got this basically a set of 3 poles, if you like, that are called stumps. And then on top of them, these things called bails. And one of the ways, there's 10 ways you can get a batsman out, but one of the ways in which you get a batsman out is basically by knocking those things over. So the batsman misses it, you hit, it knocks those stumps over. So you have 2 sets of those. And when they run, the batsmen at either end run back and forth between them. And so that's what's considered to be a run when you're literally running between them. If you hit the ball all the way to the boundary, then you hit it on the ground, that's effectively considered to be a 4. So most similar thing would be like a ground rule double, although it's not exactly that, but sort of like that. And so if you hit a 4, that's just along the ground. And then the equivalent of A baseball home run is called a six. So that's worth 6 runs if you hit it out of the ground. It's worth 4 runs if you hit it on the ground. And unlike baseball, it always seems showboating to me when somebody trots around the bases. It's like, you got a home run, you don't need to run around the base. But in cricket, they don't bother doing that. If you hit a 4, then you just go back and take your next thing. You don't actually run for. You don't run for to do it.
Is somebody trying to beat them somewhere? Like, so if you hit it in the air, you run until somebody catches it, and that's how you get the runs.
If they catch it, you're out, right? So there's no. I mentioned that you're. there's various sort of ways of explaining cricket, and one of them is captured on a what do we call it? I'm becoming all British because I'm talking about a British thing. In Britain, we call it a tea towel. What's that called?
A tea towel?
Where you dry your dishes and stuff on it.
Just dish towel. Dish towel.
Okay, yeah. So the thing that I'd completely forgotten. All right. So anyway, 20 years and I can't remember that. But anyway, so there's this tea towel in Britain that like has the laws of cricket, they call it. And one of the things on it, it's kind of legendary, and it's like you're in until you're out. And so what that really means, you're in until you're out, is that in baseball, 3 strikes and you're out and that's it. Now you can miss the ball 1,000 times in cricket and you're not going to get out. But one of the ways of getting out in cricket is being caught. So yeah, absolutely. If you hit the ball in the air, somebody catches it, you're out. And in the versions where there's only 1 innings each in the game, that's it. You're done. You're not gonna bat again for the entire time. Now that said, all of the the entire field bats. There's no substitutions. So everybody in the side bats, and then up to 5 or 6 or more people may bowl. So everybody, you basically have kind of like a lot of all-rounders, and you're not substituting out pitchers. So if you think about it in baseball, right, you got a pitcher, you finish, once he's done, he's done. He's out for the rest of the game. Now in cricket, that bowler will bowl for a period, another bowler will come on, he'll come back, he'll bowl for another period, and he's fielding that entire time in between the times when he's bowling. And so I mentioned that they've got these 2 batsmen and they're running back and forth.
Yeah.
The bowlers actually bowl from either end. So each bowler bowls 6 deliveries from one end. That's called an over. And then when he's done with the 6 deliveries, another bowler is coming on and bowling from the other end, and he bowls 6 deliveries. And so it's tandem, back and forth like that.
To the other batter?
Until they're exhausted, and then another bowler will come on and replace one of them, and then that bowler will just field.
But are they each... So you got 2 people batting at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
And the one... It's basically like they just take turns?
Sort of, yeah. So imagine Paul and Matt are batting, right? We're in. And let's say Harold Larwood, who I mentioned earlier, he runs into bowl. I'm batting. I'm terrified because he's really fast and really accurate, right? And so I'm batting, and let's say I hit the ball. I'm lucky enough to hit the ball. If I run 1 run, then I'm now at the other end, and you're at the end that I was at. And so when Harold Larwood comes into bowl again, he's bowling at you. And if let's say you scored 2 runs, we go back forth, and then it would be you again. And so that would continue until we got to the end of the over. And let's say you're still there at the end of that end, at the end of that over. Then another bowler comes on. Let's take a current great English fast bowler, Jimmy Anderson, right? So Jimmy Anderson is now bowling, but he's bowling from the other end. So now he's facing me. So the batsmen are just like going back and forth like that. And the bowler bowls their 6 balls from one end. And then whoever happens to be at, let's say, this end, a bowler is coming in and bowling to that person now.
So let's say I hit it. Do you run when I hit it and we're both trying to score runs?
So what happens is if you hit it, somebody will call. And so what that means is, this is just in practice as to how they do it, right? So somebody will call, and who calls is depending upon where you hit it. So if you hit it forwards, again, this is another difference. There's no foul territory in cricket.
Okay.
So you can hit behind the wicket, in front of the wicket. You can hit it in any direction that you want. And the best players are incredibly skilled. There are probably a dozen or more cricket shots, right? And the different types of shots that are played. And so there's even these crazy ones now called ramps where you literally hit it up over your head. So you've got all these crazy shots that effectively you can play. If you hit it in front of the wicket, you can see the ball well. So you'll say run or yes or something like that. And then we are both running. But because you hit it, the score goes to you. But either of us could be run out. That's another way of getting out, right? Which is basically like, not getting to the base, but either of us could be run out. And then let's say that they throw the ball at the non-striker's end, right? You're running to that end if you're just hitting one, if you're just getting one run, or they could throw the ball at the other end. And let's say I was running towards that. If I was out of my ground, I would be the one who was out. So whoever's out of their ground would be the person that you get out, which I guess, again, is a little bit similar to baseball in the sense that, if you're on second base and you're running to third base, you're not the guy that hit it, but you're still the guy that's out because they tagged you out at third base. So it's sort of a little bit like that in a sense that either player can be out. But as I say, the innings, it's innings with an S is what it's called, but the innings continues until 10 players are out. Right. And because you play batsmen and bowlers, and you have to have enough bowlers to allow you to get through the whole inning, so you always have at least 4 and often 5 or 6 people that can bowl. That means that there are actually a bunch of people in the side that really aren't that good at batting. And so what you do is you stack all the really good ones at the top end of the batting order, and then the batting gets progressively worse as you move down the order, because you don't want like a really great player being stuck with nobody to bat with him. Because you could be like, Bradman many times. Part of the reason why Bradman's average was so high was that many times you get to the end of the innings and there's nobody left with him. Everybody else has got out and he's out there on his own. So he's not out at the end, but the innings is over.
And are you trying to hit it away from the people in the field as best you can? Is that the idea? You're trying to hit it away from them, right?
Yeah, because then you'll be able to run. Yeah, because then you'll be able to run
for as long as you can.
And these guys are incredibly skilled. One of the differences between like playing it at the level that I played it and playing at the level, which, wasn't that high level, and, like the pros, is that they are just absolute experts at, bisecting the field, right? There'll be like a fielder here and a fielder here. And as I mentioned, it's way more sophisticated than cricket with regard to that, because the most sophisticated they get is putting on the shift or something like that. But here you could have like 5 guys right around the bat, or you could have them all spread out as, wherever you want. So they're adjusting and adapting it according to the situation, the game situation, according to where the batsman tends to hit it, according to what the bowler's doing. And they may adjust it 3 or 4 times, even in an individual over. So as a batsman, you have to be incredibly skilled at being able to adapt to that and hit it where the fielders are not.
So what are
those guys are superb at that.
What are the other 9 guys doing while the 2 guys are batting?
Having a cup of tea. That's one of the really interesting things about the longer form of the game, right? Because, 5-day version of the game, it is not inconceivable that like one batsman or even a pair of batsmen might be batting for a day and a half or 2 days.
Wow.
And so you are, generally they're watching, especially if a batsman is that, is that much informed. You want to watch it. It's great. Right?
But they're off the field somewhere. They got to be off the field, right?
You're watching a master at work, but normally you're just sort of like hanging around waiting to go in.
But they're off the field.
They're off the field.
Yeah.
Which leads me to another way of getting out, by the way, which is timed out. There's a thing. there's a dream that I've never heard a professional cricketer not say that this happens to them. There's a nightmare that every professional cricketer has, and the nightmare is that the previous batsman gets out and they haven't got like all their equipment on, and you get timed out after 5 minutes. And so the nightmare is maybe they're on the toilet or, or something is happening, something like that. And the player gets out quickly and they're not ready.
Yeah.
Because typically what you do is you pad up and you're ready for when the next guy comes in. But you can imagine that, like, let's say that a guy's batting for 2 days and it looks like nothing's going on at all. And then a guy gets out, and then the very next ball, another guy gets out. And then it's like, oh my God, I've been hanging around for 2 days. I didn't know what I was going to do. And now all of a sudden I got to get in. So they all have this nightmare that they haven't been able to put all of their equipment on in time. And then the umpire times them out for not being able to get out there in the middle fast enough.
Oh, wow. Are they wearing are the fielders wearing a glove of some sort, or is it all barehanded?
Barehanded.
And if they catch it in the air, you're out.
Yeah.
So
and sometimes barehanded and very, very close to the bat, by the way. I mean, like within 2-3 feet or something like that. It can be.
Oh, wow. Really? It's like a flat paddle, right?
Yeah. So
hitting that ball out of, as a home run, like you said, out of like basically out of the pitch. That happens a lot?
Depends on the version. So I mentioned there are these multiple versions, and the one that the Americans always poke fun of, the 5 days and ends in a draw, which it can. I mean, there are actually 4 results in cricket. So the first team wins, the second team wins. There's a draw and a tie, and a draw and a tie are different to each other. We don't need to go into the nuances of that. But that version is, you don't see many sixes or home runs at all. You might not see. You might go a whole day and not see one.
Wow.
The fastest, most frenetic version of the game, there's a version called T20, which instead of being based on time and when people get out, you've got a certain number of deliveries, and then the other side has that certain number of deliveries. So in the case of T20, you get 120 deliveries, or pitches, if you like. The other side gets 120 pitches, and that's it. And whoever scored the most runs at the end of it is the winner. That's the version, by the way, that the Indians are absolutely obsessed with over anything else. They have this thing called the IPL, which is the Indian Premier League, and it's the biggest tournament in the world. Anyway, with that version, it's chaos. I mean, there are in one innings that might last half of the game might last an hour and a half or 2 hours or something like that. You might see 20, 30 home runs, the equivalent of home runs in that period.
How do they get the ball back on a home run?
Fans throw it back.
Because the whole point is use the same ball.
Same ball. I've never, ever, I mean, in the entire time watching cricket, I don't think I've ever seen a situation where a fan hasn't thrown it back. It's just a thing you do. You don't even think about it. And it's not like in baseball where throwing it back is seen as almost like a negative thing. That's what you do, right?
Yeah.
And it's part of the game and part of your responsibility of a fan, and you throw the ball back so they can carry on.
That's really cool. Well,
sometimes I've seen situations where it gets hit all the way out of the stadium and into like a car park or something like that. And then somebody will scurry out in the car park and find it in the car park. And I saw one situation on TV, this is pretty funny, where the guy hit it out of the ground into a car park, and it went through it basically smashed the windscreen of a car in the car park, and it was the commentator's car. He's like, "Oh, it's hit a car. It's hit my car." And so they had to ferret around inside there, and the alarm went up, I think, as well. And they got it out, and then they threw it back into the stadium so they could carry on.
Oh, that's awesome. So barehanded, so the team is like, it's a professional league. They have the same uniform, like that, like everybody's kind of.
Yeah. I guess that's a bit of a difference too. Every country that plays, and the top countries that play, I'll probably miss one, but I'll try and get it right. So the top countries that play are England, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, what's known as the West Indies, which is basically Caribbean. It's the only sport where they kind of all get together and play as one. So like, Barbados and Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica and Antigua and all those different countries, they basically come together and play as one team called the West Indies.
Yeah.
And then India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Zimbabwe, Bangladesh, Ireland actually just started playing at this kind of international top level. And I'm sure I've missed one or two. But anyways, so those countries basically are countries that are considered to be test playing nations. So those are countries that play it at the very highest level. Yeah. And almost all of those countries, they have a domestic league of some sort. And so I guess the best equivalent to that would be like in soccer, the Premier League or something like that. But it's a much, much lower key. The domestic leagues are typically much, much lower key, with the exception of this IPL that everybody's obsessed with. So by far the most watched domestic competition is the Indian Premier League. That's the it's watched by, I think, more English people than the English version is. Very few people watch the domestic version of the game. And if you went to a ground, like you might see 50 people at the ground. I mean, it's like, and a bunch of people follow it on social media and, follow it in various other things, but it's not watched a great deal. And then it's good. The quality is quite high, but it's good.
Yeah.
But where it starts to get really interesting is international. So it is like England versus Australia or whatever. And what's, I think, uniquely interesting about it is that, as an Englishman, you'd expect I follow England. And because they're traveling over to another part of the world, what happens is they go to that other part of the world and they play a series in that part of the world. And they actually play different forms of the game. So they'll play that T20 one, the really frenetic one that I spoke about. Yeah. They'll play the one-day version, which is a bit like T20, but instead of it taking 3 or 4 hours, it takes basically a day, which is, sort of, they start about 11 o'clock and they finish about 6, 7 o'clock at night. And then they play the 5-day version, the test match version, which is, as I say, is considered to be the hardest version, the pinnacle of the game. And, that's the 5-day things. And they may play 5-day games against each other.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like when they do that, right, because it's a series, a multi-game series, it's very important and it's considered almost to be like a World Series or something, something like that. And you follow it over the course of those series. But because they're all 5-day games, that might be sort of over the course of a summer that you're seeing this drama unfold. And you see these wild swings as, even within the course of an individual game, you'll typically see these wild swings as the game evolves. So so on the domestic side, when they're playing these, particularly the shorter versions of the game, they have uniforms, the typically brightly colored uniforms and different colors and things like that. Almost like, you would have in football or baseball or soccer or something like that.
Is there contact?
But then in test match cricket, and indeed in the one-day version of the game, they're actually wearing white. So both sides wear white, and they're called cricket whites. And these days they've changed it a little bit, so they have like names on the back to try to make it more accessible, but they never used to. Just like everybody would wear white, and you just know who the players were.
Yeah, I think that's what I've seen. Like in my mind, that was why I even asked about the uniforms, because it was like, well, who's who here? But it's almost like only 4 people are playing at once at any given time, right? The 2 bowlers and the 2 batters. The fielding side
has got 11 people on it.
They're out there, but I mean, it's between those 2 and the pitcher, the bowlers and the batters.
Yeah. So what you would see if you looked at a game right now is you would see on the field, you would see the 2 batsmen or batters. Actually, it's kind of shifted actually because so many women play the game now. It used to be, as a kid, it used to be called batsmen, but now it's typically called batters. So you got the 2 batters, and then you've got the 1 bowler who's bowling at that moment, right? And then the rest of the field is the fielders,
just out there wherever.
And so you've got on the field at any one time, you've got the 11 players from the fielding side and the 2 players from the batting side. and then the 2 umpires. That's what you would see at any point. And the only guy on the field who has gloves, well, the batsmen have gloves, they have batting gloves, but the only other fielder that has gloves is called the wicketkeeper, which is basically the bat stop.
And how do they get, so let's say a person hits a line drive, it bounces twice, one of the fielders picks it up, the guy's running back and forth.
Yeah.
How does he get him out?
So when they're running
make
back
him stop
forth?
running. Yeah, is he just hit him with the ball?
No. So I mentioned those.
I was hoping it was hit him with the ball.
Or the wickets. Yeah. So what you do is you, if they're out of their ground, you're basically trying to hit them. So you hit, not hit the batters, but hit those stumps, those pieces of wood with the bails on and stuff like that. And so what you'll have is you might get a direct hit. So you hit it indirectly, or more typically you'll throw it to whoever's fielding at that end. So at the batsman's end, it'll be the wicketkeeper, the bat, the equivalent of the bat stop. And then at the bowler's end, it might be the bowler or it might be another fielder who runs in to catch it. And then they'll break, they break the stumps basically. So those, on top of those 3 pieces of wood that I told you about, they have bails at the top. And so in order for somebody to be out, those bails have to be broken. So I might catch the ball and then I might hit the stumps with the ball, and then that will break the stumps. And if the batsman's out of his ground, when that happens, then the batsman's out.
So if the
There's
batsman,
a little kind of crease that he has to get past.
If the batsman gets back before that person gets there, they can't break the stick.
Oh, you can break them, but it just doesn't do anything. So they just pop the bails back on and carry on. So
I could get, let's say I catch it and I throw it from wherever I am and hit the thing from, the equivalent of like left field. I throw it and hit that wicket. He's out.
If he's not made his ground, if he's not got that.
While he's running.
So, so he'll run in. He's holding the bat. He runs the bat. So the bat, I should mention that too, right? So there's this crease that's in front of the stumps, which is basically a line. Yeah. And you run your bat in, which means you slide it along the ground. And if the bat is raised, then the bat doesn't count, and you got to get your foot in or something like that. But if the bat is down, you just have to get the bat in. The bat has to be past that crease. And if you've done that, then you're in. If you fail to do that, if you're out of your ground, as they say, then you're out. That's called a run out. Is that way of that's another one of the 10, right? Is a run out, which is not that common, but it certainly does happen.
So let's say I'm throwing the ball as a fielder and I throw it and I'm trying to hit the thing just as the guy comes in. Theoretically, you'd hit the person if they're trying to get. I'm thinking of like schoolyard rules of like wiffle ball. Like you're trying to hit the person with the ball.
If you hit the person, that's just considered. That's another way of getting out, which is obstructing the field, right? So if I used to umpire this thing as well, you can probably tell, right? But another way of getting out is obstructing the field, which is really what they call obstructing the field. So if you're like intentionally trying to get in the way, that's different, but it almost never happens, right? Because, it's kind of against the spirit of the game and all that kind of stuff. So you're basically running in, and then if the ball happens to bounce off you, then the ball happens to bounce off you.
And the pads are to protect you from the ball? But not other people. Yeah. There's no contact with other.
Well, yeah. Funnily enough, right? You're kind of driving at all the different ways of getting out, which is kind of interesting. So you think about it, right? I'm a batsman. I've got a bat to protect me, and I've got pads to protect me, like leg pads to protect me, effectively. And I don't have to hit the ball, right? So in the shorter versions of the game, then I want to hit the ball. I'm very highly incentivized to hit the ball because there's only, I'm only going to get a certain number of balls and I want to get as many runs as I can so that the other side won't get it. But in the longer version of the game, it's much more tactical and I should say much more strategic in nature. And there might be periods of time where you're not actually that interested in scoring runs. You're just interested in staying in. Why would you do that? Because it was what I've mentioned before about time, right? If it's really, really difficult conditions out there,
you want to wait it out.
In and wait for the cloud cover to clear, or wait for the ball to soften a bit or something like that. So you're not necessarily trying to score a bunch of runs at those particular times. At other times you will be.
And the bowlers only get 6 shots at it, right?
Yeah, and the bowler's trying to get you out potentially, and you are trying to just stay in, right? So then it becomes like very sort of almost like a boxing match kind of thing where you got one guy is on the attack and the other guy's on the defense, but maybe the guy who's on the defense is really on the defense to try to tire out the guy that's on the attack. It's sort of a bit like, like Ali with rope-a-dope or something like that. It's kind of got that feel to it at certain times. Anyway, so you're batting, you got the bat, you got the pads that can sort of block all that out. And believe you me, if you weren't wearing pads and the ball hit you, well, you're not going to be in a pretty state, right? So so you have the pads to keep it. The ball could anytime could like spit in one direction and hit you on the pads, but it could, without this other way of getting out, and I'm about to say, it could go kind of wrong because basically the pads are really big. You could just be like kicking the ball away, and then the game would basically go nowhere. So they have another way of getting out, which they call LBW, which means leg before wicket. And what that means is that if the ball bounces, typically might not bounce before it hits the pads, but typically it will. The ball bounces, hits you on the pads, and would have gone on to hit the stumps, then the umpire will call that out. Now, there's a bunch of nuances to that in terms of where the ball hits the ground and all that kind of stuff in order to keep the game evenly poised. But basically it's that. If the ball hits you in line and would have gone on to hit the stumps, then you're out LBW. And that's one of the other ways that's basically one of the other ways of getting out. So that stops you from just like kicking the ball away or just planting your whole body in front of the stumps so that nothing will ever get through. And
the bowler is trying to hit the stumps, and you are trying to hit it away from that.
That's what I would say. So the bowler has a bunch of different ways in which he can get you out. So I mentioned a really good bowler called Jimmy Anderson. So with his swing, his ability to swing the ball, so he can swing the ball in towards you and he can swing the ball away from you. So what he might do, for example, is he might bowl like 2 or 3 in-swingers that are kind of coming in at you and would go on to hit the stumps, and you're blocking those out. And then he'll throw in what's called an away swinger. So you try to do the same thing, but now the ball comes in the other direction and it hits the edge of your bat, comes off the edge of your bat, and then gets caught by somebody who's close by. So there you're like using these different skills to try to get the batsman out in a variety of different ways. And so typically the most skilled bowlers actually get most of their wickets caught versus hitting the stumps. Although when they do hit the stumps, it can be quite spectacular because they'll typically, if they're fast, they'll like cartwheel all over the place. But they have getting out bowled for a very skilled batsman is less common than getting out caught by some of those fielders that are sort of waiting for the ball to catch the edge and fly off and be caught by somebody.
Huh. That's so interesting. I'm hooked, man. I want to see it. I want to watch it now and like kind of try to understand it.
Yeah, I would say if you're going to watch it, there's like gateway drugs sort of to watch it. And most people are like this. My son, he's 10 and he was kind of different. He actually, the version that he liked most initially was Test cricket. And that is the 5-day version with all the lulls and stuff. Because he likes the storyline of it. Yeah. He kind of likes this is happening and then that is happening and they look like they're on top and now these guys are on top and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah. And he also kind of gets the idea that like it's the pinnacle. And so he likes that aspect of it.
Right.
But most people, the gateway drug is this T20 version or even the 1-day version, what they collectively call limited overs cricket. Because it's much easier to understand. Like once you get cricket, you can watch any version of cricket, but it will take you probably months or even years to get the nuances of Test cricket, to get all of the strategy, to get why the captain is behaving in a particular way and things like that. Huh. And so the good gateway drug is typically T20. or IPL, which is a version of T20. And there are classic games that, like the last World Cup final, was just an unbelievable World Cup final. And there's highlights of that, and the commentators in it are like holding their heads in their hands. They can't believe it. They can barely cope with the stress and the tension themselves. That's the thing that we didn't touch on at all, which is that cricket is as much a game of heartache and pain as it is a game of celebration and joy. And particularly in Test cricket, like there's so much, like there's so many highs, there's so many lows. There's periods of time, it's somebody who adores Test cricket. There are periods of time where it's deathly dull, but there are periods of time where it is the most stressful, tense experience of your life. And then there's periods of time where it's just plain joyful. And so it's very much a metaphor for life.
Yeah.
In that sense, that it has all of these like different elements of it, and that makes it better. But to come back to that sort of limited overs version of the game, even within that, there can be like the stress and the tension and all of that kind of stuff. And you really, really see that with some of these classic games. So the thing I would recommend is I would like try to find like the highlights of the 2019, I guess it would be 2019 World Cup final between England and New Zealand, and like get like an hour-long version of, so it's extended highlights so that you see what's going on. Because unfortunately, if you see like a 5-minute version or something like that, they kind of compress it all together and you don't really see what's going on. But like a 1 hour version or a 2 hour version of that, you watch that, and even though you don't fully understand what's going on, you'll get to a point where like you cannot look away due to the tension of it.
Yeah.
So I would say something like now, not every game is going to be like that. I've got to be perfectly honest. Like not every game is going to be like the 2019 World Cup final, but it will at least give you a sense as to the skills involved and the tension involved when it is at its most just gripping, I suppose. And then you and I'll have to go watch a game together, and then I will basically, if we saw a day of cricket together, by the end of it, you would know enough to be able to then go out on your journey on your own, as it were.
The West Indies League sounds pretty good.
Oh, the Caribbean
if you're picking
League
it,
the CPL. That's a lot of fun, actually. Yeah,
I think that's the move. Yeah.
That's probably the place to go do it. Yeah, we'll go hang out in Antigua or something like that, and we can watch either the CPL, or I think England are going there in next February or something like that. So we could even see an international match between them.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
And then Test cricket's done at a completely different pace. So people generally just go for a day, right? If you go to see it, you'll go for a day. People always go crazy about this thing being 5 days. I say to people, I think I said this to you at one point before, like a golf tournament's 4 days. What's the problem with a cricket match being 5? I don't get it.
It makes more sense. It makes more sense when you explain it, why that is the case. And it's actually kind of cool, I think.
Yeah.
Everybody,
and then when you watch
everybody bats. Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. And then when you watch it, it's, if you're watching a test match, you just go have a few beers and just kind of hang out, just like people do at a baseball game. But then there's a lot more. There's a lot of nuance and drama that's going on underneath it, and you can zone in for a period to capture that, and zone out for a period and just enjoy a beer.
That's awesome. I'd imagine that's why in the beginning when I asked about why it's not on the highlights more, I'm thinking there's got to be just a billion ridiculous barehanded diving catches constantly.
There are. My son, who likes all sports, but he'll particularly YouTube highlight reels.
Yeah.
Pretty cool in cricket.
That seems like the most fun thing ever, because you have no other equipment. A big open circular. That's awesome. That's really fun.
I'm going to send you links, man.
Well, I'm going to put some of these things I jotted down into the show notes, and I think it'll be fun, man. I think people will be interested. I mean, you convinced me I want to watch it.
That's cool.
and at least try to get it. I remember my cousins, oh man, back in the 80s or something, moved to England for, a little while, being in the military or something like that. And they came back they brought back a how to understand cricket book, but I was like 8. So I was like, I don't know what you're talking about.
At that point,
I'm playing baseball.
Well, and even in Britain, it's sort of a niche sport, sort of. I mean, it's certainly not, given how many people watch it, right? I mean, certain IPL games can have an audience of, I think, close to 1 billion people. Wow. So it's a very, very, popular sport worldwide. And I think, I could have this wrong, but I think in terms of people that actively watch games and so on, I think it's only second to football, soccer.
That's awesome.
But given that, like in Britain, there's like this sort of divide, right? Whereby people either get it really well, and then it probably is their favorite sport. Mm-hmm. And then if they don't, then they don't really get it at all. Yeah. And the whole, what's happening, the sport is just simply for them something that is deathly dull. But if they're out for a nice drive in the country, going to a country pub or something like that, and they see, like an idyllic English summer day looking all beautiful and pretty, and then there's 11 guys out in the field in whites, it just looks very pretty.
Yeah.
Right. And so they might think of it as being part of England's pastoral heritage or something like that.
Yeah.
But not for them. Right. And so there is definitely that interesting thing where with other sports fans, you try to kind of suss out, so you like cricket? And then and then if they do, then you can have a very, very deep, meaningful conversation with them. So that's even the case even in England, and they're doing these huge kind of outreach things, including crazy. I mentioned there's 4 different versions of the game. They're inventing another one. There's another one this year called the 100. And it's all designed to kind of make it more welcoming to other people and tweak a few rules to make it more accessible and things like that. Yeah. Fundamentally, it's a sport of a bat and a ball, and somebody has to hit more runs than the other one. So in that sense, it's very simple.
Yeah.
But the challenge, of course, is that the more you simplify, the more you get rid of the nuance. The more you get rid of the nuance, the less appealing it is to purists. And actually, the less appealing it is even to people who are not purists, but are getting more into the game. There's less for them to get into, as it were. Yeah. So that's the balance that they have to strike all the time.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate this, Paul. I know I appreciate you taking the time and chatting about this. It doesn't seem like you're sad about talking about cricket. So we can have part 2 for all the all the listener questions. And
I want to know how many things I I unintentionally got wrong as I tried to simplify. That's the problem, right? Is you're trying to equate it to baseball or softball or something like that. I know at some point I said football and soccer interchangeably. So sometimes when I said football, I meant American football. Sometimes when I said football, I meant soccer. But that's me being half British, half American now.
They'll get it right. They'll figure it out. No, I appreciate it, man. This has been really fun.
All right, man.
Really fun. Thanks for explaining cricket to me. All right. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
That you're really a part of me. Yes, I've got you under my skin. I've tried so not to give in. I said to myself, this affair ain't never gonna go too well. But why should I try to resist when, baby, I know too well that I've got you under my skin. I'd sacrifice anything come what might for the sake of having you near, in spite of a warning voice that rings in the nights, repeats and repeats in my ear. Don't you know, little I've never made.